Hey, I'm Dr. Tom Miller, and thank you for joining us for part three of this incredible mini series. So excited that you've hit the play button, and I hope that the first two lessons have added value to you. If you haven't seen the first two lessons on doubt and assumption, you can go back. You can go back wherever you found this video or this podcast. Go back to the last two episodes. I put them all together. This was just something that I've been really, working through as an executive director of a school and a coach of hundreds of leaders across the country. That doubt and assumption, right? These are silent killers of your culture. And so this is part three. So this is how you eradicate all those challenges, right? How you create a school culture, an organizational culture, a team culture, a classroom culture that everybody wants to learn in, work in, right? It creates the best overall results. And I'm going to talk about how high performing leaders rebuild trust, clarity, and alignment to create that culture. So buckle up, get your pen. There's going to be lots of notes to be taken for sure. So let's talk about this. The opening, the hidden culture equation here. And so most leaders think that culture erodes because of staff attitude, lack of professionalism, miscommunication, resistance, personality conflicts, burnout, inconsistent, follow through. And all those things matter, right? All those things matter, but they're not the root cause. They're symptoms of the root cause. The real culture killers are silent. And this is doubt, right? We talked about how doubt creates this gap and assumptions fill that gap, right? Assumptions fill the gap that doubt creates, and resentment grows that gap. And then culture erodes from the inside out. Okay. Because remember, culture is the sum of the behaviors of all the people inside. Okay, it's the sum of the behaviors. It's the actionable, right? It's the worst behavior that you'll tolerate. It's all of those pieces, but it's the sum of it, and that's what your culture is. And so this is the culture equation that most leaders overlook. And I wanted to I'm going to share my notes here so you can kind of see it along with me if you're watching. If not, you're just going to have to listen carefully. But emotion minus information equals assumption. Okay. Emotion minus information equals assumption. Just had this happen as a leader not 30 minutes ago. I had a teacher who, a student got left behind, and I had made a comment about not leaving students, behind, and they were having a tough week. And in a very short conversation went from I'm in trouble, I'm going to get fired. I was like, no, my fault. I should have not have communicated in that way. I didn't mean to, create that feeling, for you. And I could have just shut my mouth and everything would have been fine because the student was safe, right? We could have talked about it another time. And so emotion minus information equals assumption, right? Assumption plus silence equals drama. Okay. So if we didn't have a conversation, if we didn't follow up, or if I didn't, see that, then we may have, escalated to this higher level, right? Which is drama plus time equals erosion, right? The relationship between me and that other adult would erode, right? Because I would be assuming that they left a student, behind, or they would be assuming that I was angry with them and I was going to fire them, right? And then erosion plus avoidance equals cultural collapse. Erosion plus avoidance equals cultural collapse. And oh my gosh, I've violated this one so many times because, you know, uh, having difficult conversations isn't fun. Having crucial conversations isn't fun. But the longer we avoid them, right, the worse that they get. And then they explode. That's why we teach in our how to lead complicated people, lesson. We teach to shovel the pile when it's small, shovel the pile when it's small. So I'll go through it again. Emotion minus information equals assumption. Assumption plus silence equals drama. Drama plus time equals erosion, and erosion plus avoidance equals a cultural collapse, right? And so this lesson is going to teach you how to reverse that equation. So let's start the doubt assumption erosion cycle. Let's talk about that. So this is a psychological pattern occurring in every school. Why is it occurring in every school? Because there's human beings in every school. Your school is filled with humans. And a leader, okay, so an example, a leader feels doubt and internal uncertainty, right? Did they understand me? Do they support this? Did I make the right call? That doubt creates that emotional space, right? And because humans hate uncertainty, right? I've got to create that story in my head. The mind fills up with that assumption, and the stories begin. They don't care. They're resisting. They're not aligned. They left that kid behind, right? They didn't, I mean, whatever it was, right? And the assumption now becomes emotion. Assumption becomes emotion. Emotion turns into resentment. And remember, we talked about nothing grows in resistance, revenge, or resentment. Emotion becomes resentment. And the longer the assumption is unchallenged or unclarified, the deeper the resentment roots. And resentment now becomes behavior where leaders might withdraw, tighten control, communicate less, stop coaching, stop believing, treat people differently, lose optimism, or just avoid people altogether. Raise your hand if you've worked with a leader that just seemed to avoid everybody. I did, head down all the time. And that behavior becomes culture. Remember, we talked about culture is the average sum of the behavior. So if I went too fast, I'm going to do it one more time. A leader feels doubt. The doubt creates emotional space. The mind fills that space with assumption. Assumption becomes emotion. Emotion becomes resentment. Resentment becomes behavior. And behavior now becomes the culture. And if it's bad behavior and it's not addressed, the culture has just been lowered, right? This is where culture breaks down quietly and slowly. All right. And humans, right? Humans are assumption machines. If we don't shovel the pile when it's small, it becomes a mountain. This is where we got to lean in, get curious. Okay, so we got some really great lessons in, support. And I'll put some links here, or you can email me and say, hey, I want the complicated people lessons, right? Or how to lead difficult people lessons. So, okay. Now, culture breaks in the gaps, okay? Not the big event. So culture doesn't, collapse in one moment. It takes time. It collapses between the spaces of those moments, right? This might be the gap between expectation and execution, communication and interpretation, tone and perception, decision and explanation, doubt and clarity, assumption and truth. When leaders don't close the gap, the culture spills out, right? Because remember, we don't close the gap, assumption fills that gap and emotion fills that gap, right? So let's talk about some practical tools that you need as a leader, okay? So one, the expectation gap, right? So how do I close the expectation gap? And the expectation gap, right? It's the number one cause of assumption. Leaders think that expectations are clear, or that the staff didn't hear them, they didn't understand them, they didn't internalize them, agree with them, whatever it may be. Okay. And as a result, oh, I just love this line. If expectations are not agreed upon, written down, and clearly communicated, accountability holds no weight, right? So that's what you always need to clarify expectations. Any uncommunicated expectation is just a thought, right? Maybe if there's anything you remember about this lesson, maybe remember that, right? Any uncommunicated expectation is merely a thought. So what can close those expectation gaps? Written down, standards or directions, repeated communication, or we call it cascading communication. That's following back up the next day. Do you have any questions? Since 84% of the people in the world are process oriented, they think why and how. And so they need time to process and think through. So you gotta come back after you communicate expectations. You got to follow back up and make sure that people understand and they agree and they don't have any questions and they're moving forward, right? You can check for understanding. Say, hey, you know what? I've done this a million times, and sometimes I leave out really important details when I communicate it. take me through the first couple of steps. And it's not that I'm micromanaging you. It's just I just don't want you to waste your time. And I know you don't want to waste time either, right? Because your time is valuable. So what are the first three things you'll do? Great, right? Or just, oh, you know what? I missed a step. You got it right. You just check for understanding. And you can also do that just by getting curious. Help me understand. How come we're doing it this way? What's the results you're getting? Is this the results that you want? Are you trying to get something better? Okay. And revisit agreements and clarifying timelines. I never realized as a product driven person that timelines were important. My timeline's important. That's it. And if I'm asking for help, normally that means that I'm already like, behind my timeline. Yeah. So it's important, right? If you're an S style, if you've taken a disc, style, with us or with someone else, if you haven't done it, boy, is it a great tool for you. Um, the steady style, man, they can really help leaders by saying no or by asking, clarifying, well, what would you like me to prioritize? You've asked me to do these, three things. What, should I do first? Okay. So revisiting agreements, clarify timelines, check for understanding, model, repeat communication, and written down standards. Like these are great ways to close the expectation gap. Okay. The expectation gap. Number two, the communication gap. This is where assumptions thrive. And communication gaps appear when leaders assume people just know, or they send but don't ensure receipt or don't ensure understanding. They speak but don't confirm understanding. They communicate the what but not the why. I mean, people want to know why. Like, what's the bigger picture? How does this all fit in? Okay. And here's a great quote for you about this one. In the absence of information, we assume the worst. In the absence of information, we assume the worst. So what closes a communication gap? One is the communication loop, right? That's that cascading back through. That's at the end of every meeting, stopping and saying, okay, what decisions were made? What needs to be communicated? When does it need to be communicated? By who, right? And then how will we know that it's been communicated, right? What are the signs that we've seen it? So the next day when you're walking through the school or like you're expecting to see something, and if people aren't doing it, you could pretty much rest assured that the communication didn't make it, right? Or nobody read it or whatever it may be. So, at that meeting, right, that's when you say who's going to communicate to each member of the team, and then make sure that you follow up, right? Hey, I sent an email yesterday about X. Do you have any questions on it? They said, oh, I didn't see it. Okay, no worries. Here's like the 30-second, view of it, right, that we need you to do, something to that effect. Asking clarifying questions, right? Getting really, really curious is a great way. Um, what are, uh, um, boy, don't ever think that silence is agreement. So as you're ending that meeting, you can get some clarifying questions. What are some things you like about it? What are some questions you may still have? Or say, hey, why don't we do this? Let's take the time to process this information. Let's huddle back, tomorrow right after arrival, and let's just kind of review this and make sure everybody's clear, whatever it may be. Um, observation-based conversations. This is that VRUOL process. Here's what I expected to see, vision. Here's what I saw, reality. Help me understand. How come we're doing it this way, right? And like, oh, okay, got it. Okay, well, here's what we need to do moving forward. Feedback cycles, really, really critical. Making sure that you and your team are on consistent feedback cycles, and you're giving feedback that are specific, praise focused. Feedback statements, not just good job or way to go. Okay, tell people exactly what you see that they did well, and transparent decision making. This is a big one that I'm working on for sure, is really trying to get a better understanding of what our staff wants to know in like decision making processes, what they would like to be more involved in with decision making processes, or how they would like to be communicated before like a decision is made. Okay, that's a really, really big one, right? So that's your closing your communication gaps. All right. So we've talked about expectation gap and communication gap. Let's talk about the alignment gap now. So Everybody sees the school differently. Teachers see it through the lens of their classroom, the parents see it through the lens of their child, the board sees it based upon what the principal tells them. Leaders see it through the entire ecosystem, right? The entire organization. And so, if you want them to see the bigger picture, you've got to paint the picture with them inside of it all the time. You got to paint the picture with them inside it. Let them feel, right, what it means, to be one of the coaches that are growing like the future teachers, or one of the teachers that's going to, take on some upper level, classes, right? Like I see you in this role, right? 3 years from now, I see the school here, and I see you doing X, Y, Z. Okay, vision's important. So if you want to close that alignment gap, a lot of vision casting is important. Remember, vision leaks, so you got to be talking about it all the time, okay, and recommunicating it, and then also communicating examples of when it's happening. Can you see it? We're getting closer. Can you see this, right? Can you see that next step? Oh my gosh, look at these opportunities now because we did that. Strategic communication. Best way to show this as an example, right? Not only just, painting individuals in the picture of the vision in the future, but also talking about, the strategy. So every goal that you have needs a strategy, right? A goal without a strategy is just a wish. So when I am communicating, I'm also communicating the strategy behind what we're trying to get to, right? The strategy, right, of how we're recruiting students, or how we're recruiting teachers, or how we're, moving towards, closing workforce gaps, right? How does that all fit in to the bigger picture? Role clarity. This is a big one. Um, uh, uh, Everybody needs to know their role to the goal. And so there is no job that's too small, right? Everybody should understand their purpose in the organization. They should have, clarity that their strengths line up to that purpose, that their daily work has incredible impact. And when they step outside of their role, whether it's to help someone else or to avoid their own work, right? They're actually creating misalignment. And so it's important that you as the leader we use a KRAs, right? Some say like, KPIs, key performance indicators. I call them key result areas. And each one of our employees has a list of them. So if I see people working outside it, I get really curious. How come you're working on this? Right? How does this, fit in? And I don't say don't do it. I say this needs to be limited because you've got other bigger things to do. Like let's find some other people to help them. Okay. And really showing why this matters, right? Letting people in on the bigger picture and understanding, the purpose and the vision and the goals is really, really important all the time. So that's closing the alignment gap. We got lots of great resources around that, especially in our Blueprint for Success, which I hope you're all a member of. If you're not a member of, oh my gosh, right now you can get in for an entire year for just $99. $99, and that plus a whole bunch of other stuff. So check out the link here if you want to be a member of our Blueprint for Success and get live, teaching like this every month. If this is valuable to you and you want to be a part of a community that's looking to grow, and you're looking for not just, strategies that work, but also some really great professional development in the areas of communication and team building. This is what you'll have access to. So great. It's all through our big empowerment mentoring program. Which is just $99 a year. It's fantastic. So, and you can get a copy of my book with it, which is free, which is a great gift, which is normally, $34.99 on Amazon. So you're saving that, money plus, getting all these extra programs for free for a year to grow yourself in 2026. So, all right, where were we? Okay, so we talked about expectation gap, communication gap, alignment gap. Let's talk about the emotion gap, right? So, culture, right? This is where culture breaks the fastest, right? In this emotional gap, piece. The emotional gap forms when leaders like misread staff emotions, personalize behavior, assume intent, right? Don't, declare noble intent. They just assume that they're, trying to misbehave, or they're, trying to, create, problems, or trying to create, drama. Or they allow their own doubt to shape relational decisions. That's a big issue. So this is the gap where relational trust is lost, is lost. So what closes the emotional gap? Number one, always declare noble intent. I just have come to the conclusion that no one can surprise me anymore. Everybody's trying to do their best. Everybody's battling their own, demons and challenges and insecurities, and they just did their best. And maybe they're just having a bad day or they made a bad decision, which I've done before, right? So declare noble intent. Everybody is doing their best. And you were there one time too. At one time, someone thought that you were an idiot. I love that from Ryan Leake's book, How to Lead Complicated People. In fact, you know what? If you hop into our program, to our empowerment mentoring program, excuse me, we're going to throw in that whole Ryan Leake series that we did. It's so good on how to lead complicated people because it's such an important skill. It's a great book, but you'll get access to the full book study and the workbook that we did. So that's another great add-on bonus gift. But you got to declare noble intent. You got to learn empathy. It's not just about standing in someone else's shoes. It's about literally walking in those shoes, right? And what is it like, right? What is it like to be in certain aspects of your school or being communicated to? And I just call it being a guest, right? Have you spent the time being a guest in your school? Being a guest in your school, real conversations, like literally sitting down and having real conversations with human beings, not necessarily about their work or the work, just about them. Staying grounded in truth, right? There's always multiple stories, right? There's always all these different perspectives, but it's your job as a leader to truly identify the truth. And you can work in facts and truths, but remember, facts can change and it's the truth that you want to always get to. And it's not about being right, everybody. It's about getting it right. It's about getting it right. And not letting stories form, right? Working to shut them down, equipping your team with the skills so they don't get engaged in a drama, and working in a dramaless organization would be great. So here's 5 practices of high performing assumption free leaders. Okay, this is your action blueprint that I'm giving to you right now. Number one, clarify early and often because repetition creates reality. Repetition creates reality. Number two, turn every assumption into an observation. Every assumption into an observation. And this, could be that it's that VRUL script we talk about. So vision, this is what I expect to see. Reality, this is what I did see or did hear. You help me understand. Okay. And let them talk it out. And then you ask more clarifying questions. And the O is opportunities or options, right? How can we do this, differently next time? And L is leadership. How can I lead you better? How can I communicate this better so we don't have the same issue, right? So turn every assumption into an observation, into a real conversation. Practice number 3 is to practice noble intent. And every team member has a 10, right? Until their own behavior lowers their score. Don't you come in with a judgment. No, don't no prejudiced, no emotional reactions, no character assassination. Right? You just come in, everybody you meet, 10 on their head, no matter what the situation is, and you treat them that way. And you treat them that way. If they treat you poorly, it's not a open invitation to treat them badly too. Okay, just you have a very calm conversation about expectations and how we will treat each other, right? And you can always come back to the meeting. You don't have to you don't have to go back and forth, right? So practice number 1 was to clarify fully and often. 2 is turn every assumption into an observation. 3 is practice noble intent. Number 4, ask clarifying questions. Okay. 3 simple questions that can help reverse the culture equation. What happened? What were you expecting? And what do you need to do next time? What happened? What were you expecting? And what do you need to do next time? That's it, right? Just lead, lead people. Don't tell them what to do, right? You can lead people through only asking questions, right? What happened? What we're expecting to happen? What do you need to do different than next time? Great. I can't wait to hear how it goes. can't wait to hear how it goes. And number five, practice shoveling the pile when it's small, right? Practice shovel that's shovel the pile when it's small. This is, the longer you wait to address any assumptions, the worse the result's going to be. And this is the leadership discipline that prevents culture erosion. Everything you see that doesn't line up to your vision, you have to address it, right? Not in a egotistical, judgmental way. Say, help, tell me about this. Tell me about this. Or, oh, I thought we decided to do it this way. Okay? And right, just seek to understand. Seek to understand. Okay. So um, we've got one more, and there's some more reflection exercises I think that I've added here. Is this lesson any good for you? I mean, are you learning anything? If you learn anything, hit the like button. Make sure you're a subscriber if it adds value to you. But there's a three-part culture reset conversation that I want to share, and then our reflection exercises, and we'll be good to go. And I can't wait. So, a powerful tool that schools can use anytime. So one, name the behavior or the story without judgment. And this could be, I've been noticing tension around. Could be a part of your day, could be a person, right? You're just naming the behavior without judgment. And then number two is you're going to clarify the expectation or the reality. Hey, this is what we agreed upon, right? Or are we committed to this? Okay. And then you co-create the next step. What do we both need to do moving forward? Okay, this is that VRUL in a tighter piece, right? I've been noticing the tension around. Here's what we agreed on. What do we need to both do to move forward, right? To get that result that we want. So this resets relationships, expectations, alignment, and emotional tone. But you've got to come into this conversation in a good space, right? Remember, body language is 55% of communication, tone of voice is 38. So the words you use are only they're only 7%, right? So you can say the right thing, but you say it in a wrong tone, in a wrong face, and it's not going to go well. So it's important for you to come into this conversation, wide open. And I always do I can't remember her name, but I think it was a TED talk, but she talked about when you put your arms out wide, taking some big healthy breaths, right? Just get yourself in a good space, because I have a leaky face. You can pretty much tell that I'm angry by my face. And so it's just important, right? That if you're going to have this conversation, you have to be in a good mindset and a good headspace, and not in a judgmental, negative way. So there's a couple of reflection questions here for you. What gap have you been allowing in your leadership? What gap have you been allowing? Is it expectation, communication, alignment, or emotional? What assumptions are filling that gap? What assumptions are filling? What truth replaces that story? What conversations do you need to have, and with who? And what would culture look like, or what would the relationship look like with that person if you close that gap? What would it look like? Okay, those are great, journaling questions for you over the next, couple of days. So we're going to end the lesson, right? Let's land this plane. So the identity of a high performing leader, okay, and hear me out here. Doubt attacks the leader, assumptions attack the relationships, and together they attack the culture. But clarity, conversation, and truth will restore everything, right? So leaders who eliminate doubt close assumption gaps. They build clarity, and they become the ones that create the culture that people want to work in, right? They want to belong to. That they're really attracted to. And so, I encourage to, if you need to, go back through this lesson, but most importantly, go back through these notes. Anytime that I, listen to a lesson from my mentors, John Maxwell or Paul Martinelli, and Craig, Groeschel, like all those really great leaders, like when I take notes, I go back and I use the ACT model, ACT. What do I need to apply? What do I need to change? And what do I need to teach someone else? What do I need to apply in my leadership, change in my life, and teach someone else, right? So when you go back through your notes, write an A, C, or T, and then that's how you write your action plan out. Right? So go back through this lesson, go back through these three lessons, go back through your notes, and start to create yourself an action plan. And if you're not part of a community that is cheering for you, that is rooting for you, that believes in you, and you want to be part of something bigger, with other school leaders, consider, joining our empowerment mentoring for the 2026 year. It's 12 months of support for $99, right? It's not even $8 a month, or maybe it's a little over $8 a month, right? But with it, you're going to get a copy of my book, a signed copy of my book. You're going to get all those professional development programs I talked about. So it's our master communication course, right? Because a lot of this, we could talk about the communication gap. You're going to get our blueprint for success program, which is every strategic system I use to improve mission, education plan, operations, finance, governance, parent engagement, student enrollment. Right? It's our 10 indicators of success with a strategic plan for each one of them. You get our how to build a cohesive team, because nothing worthwhile was, built alone. So you need to learn how to grow your team. It's going to come with our time management, because time is the only way we're all equal in life, and every leader needs to know how to prioritize their work. You never grow to a point where you can stop prioritizing. And then you're going to get our empowerment mentoring lessons. So these are mindset, right? Mindset, how to grow your mindset as a leader. So there's a link here. If you would like to join, or if you want to ask more questions, you can go ahead and reach out to me at the email, tom@lbleaders.com. But I really hope that you said 3 lessons added value. If they added value, imagine having not just monthly live lessons like this with me with a Q&A, but you're also going to have, tons, hundreds of hours and as much access, unlimited access as you want to these lessons, to grow yourself, to grow your team. So it's a great opportunity for you in this 2026 year. So keep making a difference. And I'm telling you, it works if you work it. I love you all. Have an amazing holiday season. And I hope to see you in 2026 as a member of our Empowerment Mentoring community. Bye-bye.